So I made it to Oxford. We're at the Vines. It is a gorgeous, it's almost like the house at the beginning of the Narnia Chronicles, where the Pevensey children have to go, where Uncle Andrew lives and where they find the wardrobe. That's what this place is like. It is just walking around the grounds here. There's just overwhelming amounts of nature. You can see very easily how this place inspired both Lewis and Tolkien. That's who we're going to be studying on this trip with Professor Gwynver Adams and Sean McDonough. There's about 20 of us, all Gordon Conwell alumni. As I was walking around, it's starting to get dark. I'm super jet lagged. I haven't had any sleep yet. But I wanted to read a passage, just a section from Lewis's space trilogy, from my favorite of the space trilogy, which is Perelandra, the second book. Because at the beginning, as I was walking, I had to get off the bus and I had to walk here to the place where we're staying. And it was, like 5-10 minute, not bad walk, but it just made me think about the opening chapter in Perelandra. And so I wanted to read an excerpt from it here on the channel for you guys. In Perelandra, the Lewis character, actually Lewis, is going to visit Professor Ransom. Now, Ransom is transparently patterned after J.R. Tolkien, and he's going to visit Ransom at his cottage. And Lewis, the Lewis character in here, doesn't know this, but he's caught up in like an extraterrestrial, supernatural, really demonic battle, a battle of good and evil. And he doesn't know this at all. He's heard Ransom talk about his journeys to, in the first book, Mars, Malacandra. And he just got a telegram saying, come to the house or to the cottage. So he doesn't know what he's really going for. And he starts to feel, as he's walking and it's, getting dark, he's starting to feel a foreboding sense. And I love this passage. This is such a perfect depiction of what's an anxiety attack. That's what he's about to experience, but it's through or brought about by these Eldila, these supernatural agents, which translated into theology, it's demons, the demonic. They're trying to keep him away. So I'm just going to read this section. This is from chapter 1 of Perelandra. As I plodded along the empty, unfenced road which runs across the middle of Worcester Common, I tried to dispel my growing sense of malaise by analyzing it. What, after all, was I afraid of? The moment I put this question, I regretted it. I was shocked to find that I had mentally used the word afraid. Up till then, I tried to pretend that I was only feeling distaste or embarrassment or even boredom. But the mere word afraid had let the cat out of the bag. I realized now that my emotion was neither more nor less nor other than fear. And I realized that I was afraid of two things. Afraid that sooner or later I myself might meet an Eldil, and afraid that I might get drawn in. I suppose everyone knows this fear of getting drawn in, the moment at which a man realizes what had seemed mere speculations are on the point of landing him in the Communist Party or the Christian Church. The sense that a door has just slammed and left him on the inside. The thing was such sheer bad luck. Ransom himself had been taken to Mars or Malacandra against his will and almost by accident, and I had become connected with his affair by another accident. Yet here we both were, getting more and more involved in what I could only describe as interplanetary politics. As to my intense wish never to come in contact with the Eldila myself, I'm not sure whether I can make you understand it. It was something more than a prudent desire to avoid creatures alien in kind, very powerful and very intelligent. The truth was that all I heard about them served to connect two things which one's mind tends to keep separate. And that connecting gave one a sort of shock. We tend to think about non-human intelligences in two distinct categories, which we label scientific and supernatural, respectively. We think of, in one mood, Mr. Wells's Martians, very unlike the real Malacandrans, by the by, or his Selenites. In quite a different mood, we let our minds loose on the possibility of angels, ghosts, fairies, and the like. But the very moment we're compelled to recognize a creature in either class as real, the distinction begins to get blurred. And when it is a creature like an Eldil, the distinction vanishes altogether. These things were not animals. To that extent, one had to classify them with the second group. but they had some kind of material vehicle whose presence could, in principle, be scientifically verified. To that extent, they belong to the first group. The distinction between natural and supernatural, in fact, broke down. And when it had done so, one realized how great a comfort it had been, how it had eased the burden of intolerable strangeness which this universe imposes on us by dividing it into two halves and encouraging the mind never to think of both in the same context. What price we may have paid for this comfort in the way of false security and accepted confusion of thought is another matter. And as the Lewis character makes his way towards Ransom's cottage, his mind starts to ruminate. Who were these Eldila that Ransom had told him about? And what did he know about them? Could he trust them? He starts to panic. He starts to be overwhelmed by fear. And by the end of the chapter, I won't spoil it if you haven't read it, but it's one of the most intense chapters in which nothing happens. It's all in his mind. But yeah, I love Perelandra so much. If you haven't read it and you're like, wait, what was that about? Pick up the Space Trilogy. Go read it. We're going to be doing this as the next Disciple Dojo book club in the near future. So if you want to make sure that you are part of that when we do, then be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And stay tuned for more details. But yeah, in the meantime, go read Lewis's Space Trilogy.